Hi everyone, I'm Any New Province, and this week we're going to find out if Hunted Witness is possibly Pauper playable. Hunted Witness is a great new flavorful common from Guilds of Ravnica. It costs 1 white mana for a 1/1 human, and when Hunted Witness dies, the Boros come to investigate and you get to create a 1/1 white soldier creature token with lifelink. For the last little while, white has been getting some new tools to help emulate the green-black Aristocrats archetype that's been popular in Pauper for quite some time. I think Hunted Witness was the last piece that we needed to finally solidify white as black's partner in their aristocratic activities. That's why I decided to try Hunted Witness out in what I think is the best black-white aristocrat shell that I'm calling Oriztocrats. Before I get into the deck tech, I just want to remind you that you can like the video or subscribe to the channel down below. I'd seriously appreciate it. It's a great way to let me know that you're enjoying everything, and it really encourages me to keep making great Pauper content. Alright, let's break down Oriztocrats. Aristocrat shells need a critical mass of creatures like Hunted Witness that replace themselves when they go to the graveyard for the first time so that we can sacrifice them to our critical sack outlets multiple times. Our first sack outlet is Carrion Feeder. It costs 1 black mana for a 1/1 zombie. It can't block, but you can sacrifice a creature to put a +1/+1 counter on Carrion Feeder. While we're emptying our hand of creatures that generate tokens when they die, Carrion Feeder's power just completely spirals out of control. It doesn't matter that we're not going to be blocking with it because we're always going to be attacking with it. I keep mentioning all of these creatures that are going to be replacing themselves when they die. I'm going to go over the other creatures we've included that do just that next. First, we have 4 copies of Doomed Traveler, a card that's very similar to Hunted Witness, but it creates a token that is a little bit more useful due to its evasion. Doomed Traveler costs 1 white mana for a 1/1 human soldier, and when it dies, you create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. We've also got 4 copies of Martyr of Dusk, another fairly new release and a card I'm really excited to try out a little bit more. Martyr of Dusk costs 1 and a white for a 2/1 vampire soldier, and when it dies, you create a 1/1 white vampire creature token with lifelink. Of course, we're running Sacred Cats. They cost 1 white mana for 1/1 cats with lifelink with the Embalm ability, which means you can pay 1 white mana, exile Sacred Cat from your graveyard, and create a token that's a copy of it, except it's a white zombie cat with no mana cost. You can only Embalm as a sorcery. I'm really happy to just have Sacred Cat around as an extra body to sacrifice to Carrion Feeder a couple of times, but its lifelink ability also kind of solidifies us in a minor life gain strategy. This card, the token from our Martyr of Dusk, and the token from Hunted Witness all have lifelink, so we're going to have some extra points to play around with. Our last 2-for-1 creature is Sultai Emissary, and I like this one because it comes back as a bigger creature the second time around. It costs 1 and a black for a 1/1 zombie warrior, and when it dies, you manifest the top card of your library. What that means is you put the top card of your library onto the battlefield face down as a 2/2 creature, and you can turn it face up anytime for its mana cost if it's a creature card. It's always really nice to have another look at the top card of our library, especially if it's something cool like a Hunted Witness or a Doomed Traveler. Maybe we need a flying creature to block, or maybe we need some extra lifelink more than we need the 2/2 manifest creature. We can flip it face up, sacrifice the creature, and get that useful token to maybe even ambush our opponent. Next, I'm going to talk about this deck's interaction. We get to play some cool types of that because we have 2-for-1 creatures that we can sacrifice. We're going to have a lot of creatures on board, and we're going to have some extra life points to play around with. Our interaction package starts with Plagued Ruscula. It costs 1 black mana for a 1/1 spirit that allows you to pay a black mana, sacrifice a creature, and give target creature -1/-1 until end of turn. You may well know from my previous videos that I love having a creature with this effect on the battlefield, something like Granger Guildmage. It comes down on turn 1 so that when your opponent starts casting spell stutter sprites to counter your spells on the next turn, you can just kill them out of the air to make sure your spells sneak through. We're also running 2 copies of Snuff Out, which is a hyper efficient removal spell. It costs 3 and a black, but if you control a swamp, you may pay 4 life rather than pay this spell's mana cost. It destroys target non-black creature. That creature can't be regenerated. We're going to want to be tapping our mana to cast more creatures to sacrifice to our Carrion Feeders every turn, so being able to pay Snuff Out's life cost instead of its mana cost is so much better for this deck, especially because we will have gained so much life off of our tokens. Sometimes that life cost from Snuff Out is really going to matter, and sometimes our opponent is going to have black creatures, so instead of a 3rd copy of Snuff Out, I've included a copy of Journey to Nowhere. Journey to Nowhere costs 1 and a white for an enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, you exile target creature. When it leaves the battlefield, you return the exiled card to the battlefield under its owner's control. Just a fantastic catch-all removal spell. Finally, we have Harsh Sustenance, which can be a removal spell, but we're really happy to send this at our opponent's face instead when we have the opportunity to. Harsh Sustenance costs 1 white-black for an instant that deals X damage to any target and you gain X life, where X is the number of creatures you control. When we need Harsh Sustenance to really matter, we're going to have to play very carefully. It's tempting to just sack all of your creatures to your Carrion Feeder or your Bloodthrone Vampire early in the game, but we have to anticipate when Harsh Sustenance will come up and act as an awesome anthem that gains us life in the late game. Alright, our last package is how our deck plans on generating a little bit of card advantage while staying on plan. First, we have Sen's Enlistment. It costs 3 and a white for a sorcery that creates 2 1/1 white Kithkin Soldier creature tokens. It also has Retrace, which is the most important part. Retrace says you may cast this card from your graveyard by discarding a land card in addition to paying its other costs. That's why we've only got 1 copy. You really only need to resolve the first one to get Retrace going. While I'll be very happy to find a Sen's Enlistment when I've got a ton of lands clogging up my hand, I'd rather be resolving this token production spell, and that's why we have a couple more than we have of Sen's Enlistment. This is Battle Screech. Battle Screech costs 2 white for a sorcery that creates 2 1/1 white bird creature tokens with flying. It also has Flashback. You can cast it again from your graveyard by tapping 3 untapped white creatures you control. Battle Screech is amazing for this deck, and it might be the reason why white is better than green for Aristocrats now that we have Hunted Witness. This creates a ton of bodies to sacrifice to our Carrion Feeders and make our Harsh Sustenances absolutely enormous out of nowhere. Our last non-land card and our last bit of pure card advantage is Night's Whisper. It costs 1 and a black for a sorcery that allows you to draw 2 cards and lose 2 life. Alright, let's have a look at this mana base. For our non-basics, we have 4 copies of Ash Barrens for fetching out basics, and we have 4 copies of Scoured Barrens. We don't want a ton of tapped lands here because we want to start committing creatures to attack our opponent right away. To do that, we have 6 basic plains and 6 basic swamps. I feel like I'm taking a little bit of a risk here on the mana base, but this deck has to be fast if it's going to win, so it's a risk I'm willing to take. Alright, let's have a look at this sideboard. First, we have 3 copies of Fragmentize for blowing up artifacts and enchantments in the most efficient way possible. We have 3 copies of Standard Bearer for picking up all of our opponent's auras and pump spells. We have another copy of Harsh Sustenance when we really have to up our life gain game. We have 3 copies of Gutshot for more efficient removal than something like a Journey to Nowhere when we're facing down fairies. We've got 1 copy of Chainer's Edict if our opponent is going all in on a single creature. We have 2 copies of Duress for pulling a problematic card out of our opponent's hand in the first couple of turns of the game, and we have 2 copies of Rite of Consumption. This ups the life gain game as well, but it can also close out a game even faster against decks like Tron. And there you have it, Oriztocrats. We're going to take this deck into a league at twitch.tv/AnyNewProvince this Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Atlantic time. We're there every Tuesday night playing possibly Pauper playable decks. Before I go, I just want to remind you that you can like the video or subscribe to the channel down below. I'd seriously appreciate it. It's a great way to let me know you've enjoyed everything, and it really encourages me to keep making great Pauper content. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this deck tech, and hopefully I'll see you on Tuesday night.